Okay, let's talk about the world's most critical and maybe most vulnerable strip of water. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a place where, honestly, the entire global economy holds its breath with every single ship that passes through. You know the phone or computer you're watching this on, the car you drive, the power that keeps your lights on? It's all connected. It's tied by this invisible thread to one tiny place on the map. It's a connection we almost never think about, but believe me, it affects literally everything. And here's why it's such a big deal. 21 million. That's how many barrels of oil squeeze through this channel every single day. Let that sink in for a second. That is 1/5 of all the oil the entire world uses, day in and day out. The scale is just mind-boggling. So, for this first part, we're going to pull on that invisible thread. We are going to unpack just how this one waterway became the absolute lifeblood for global energy and why, well, there's really no easy plan B. Just look at this list. You've got all the major oil producers of the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, all their crude oil, plus over a quarter of the entire world's liquefied natural gas from Qatar, has to get out through this one single exit. There is no other way to get to the open ocean. It's the only door. So where is all this energy going? A whopping 80% of it is heading straight to Asia. For massive economies like China, Japan, India, and South Korea, this isn't just an energy route, it's their lifeline. If this strait closes, it doesn't just mean gas prices go up. It could mean factories go dark. Their entire economies could grind to a halt. You might be thinking, well, why not just build pipelines to go around it? Great question. They've tried, but it's really just a drop in the ocean. The pipelines that exist can only handle a tiny fraction of the daily volume. The brutal math is this. There is no real substitute for the sheer number of tankers that have to sail through the strait. Okay, now let's zoom in. We're going from this huge global picture down to the terrifyingly small space these ships have to work with. There's a reason they call it threading the needle. So here's the thing. At its narrowest, the strait itself is about 21 miles wide, but the part that's actually deep enough for a massive supertanker, that's way, way smaller. It forces all these giant ships into a super rigid system, basically a two-lane highway on the water for the biggest vessels on Earth. And these are the numbers that should give you pause. The inbound lane is just 2 miles wide. The outbound lane, just 2 miles wide. That's the needle we're talking about. For a ship that can be a quarter-mile long itself, that leaves almost zero room for error. It's incredibly tight. I mean, can you imagine being the captain? You're piloting this colossal vessel that takes miles, literally miles, to come to a complete stop. And you have to steer it perfectly through this tiny channel while dodging small fishing boats, local traffic, and even military patrols. The tension on the bridge of one of these tankers must be just immense. And all of that brings us to the most dangerous part of the whole equation, the geopolitical tinderbox. Those tight physical spaces we just talked about, they're amplified 1,000 times over by the constant military standoff in the strait. And this threat, it's not theoretical. It's happened before. Back in the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, this exact area was the site of the tanker war. Hundreds of commercial ships were attacked right here. It was a brutal lesson in just how vulnerable these unarmed, slow-moving giants really are. Today, the standoff is a classic David versus Goliath story. On one side, you have the massive technological might of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. But on the other side, controlling the entire northern coastline, Iran uses what's called an asymmetric strategy. They don't need giant aircraft carriers. They rely on swarms of fast-attack speedboats, hard-to-detect sea mines, and coastal missiles hidden in the cliffs. And here is the critical thing to understand. You don't actually need to win a huge naval battle to shut down the strait. All it would take is dropping some mines in those 2-mile-wide shipping lanes, or sinking just one supertanker to block the channel. But the real goal, it's to make the voyage so risky that insurance companies refuse to cover the ships. That's how you close it without ever winning a fight. And that's the key. The trigger doesn't even have to be pulled. Just the threat of conflict is enough to send shockwaves through the global economy. Insurance premiums skyrocket, oil prices go through the roof. Everybody involved knows that a real shooting war here is basically mutually assured economic destruction. Nobody wins. Okay, but for all this talk of oil and missiles and economics, there is another story here, a really surprising one. We're going to zoom in on the island that actually gives the strait its name, Hormuz, to find a tradition that is the complete opposite of everything we've just discussed. So what kind of secret could a little island hold, sitting right in the middle of this industrial superhighway? You'd think it would have to be about oil, right? But the truth is, it's something way more amazing than that. Here it is. The island's greatest treasure isn't the black gold passing by its shores. It's the red earth underfoot. On the island of Hormuz, the soil itself is edible. It's called Galak. This rich red soil has been harvested by the local people for centuries, not as some industrial resource, but as a spice. They mix it into a sauce for fish, and they bake it into a traditional flatbread. It's an ancient culinary tradition that exists right next to the busiest oil route on the planet. And this right here is the ultimate irony of the Strait of Hormuz. On one hand, you have crude oil, a toxic liquid that fuels the world's machines. And on the other, you have Gilak soil, a pure earth that actually feeds the local people. It is the most powerful contrast you can possibly imagine, all in one tiny place. So let's wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway? First, it's this simple, stark fact. Our entire global economy hangs by a thread that is, in reality, just a shipping channel a few kilometers wide. And because of that, it represents something truly frightening. The Strait of Hormuz is a single point of failure, a deep vulnerability built right into the foundations of our modern world. And that really is the story of this place. It's beautiful, it's absolutely vital, and it is always, always dangerously close to the edge.